Matru Devo Bhava, Pitru Devo Bhava. These are the extracts of verses from ancient Vedic era scripture called Taittiriya Upanishad. These Sanskrit expressions, which advise the graduating students of ancient Vedic Gurukul about ethics and morals, imply honor thy mother and father as gods. The Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Act 2007 is a remarkable law passed by the Parliament of India to provide for the maintenance and welfare of parents and senior citizens to uphold their dignity and respect at the time of old age.
Our country will be celebrating 75 years of independence in 2022. It would be a moment of great pride, glory and joy. Fresh series of Sansad TV 75 years, Laws That Shaped India is a unique program discussing different laws that have been passed by the Parliament during these golden years. I'm your host Hemant Batra, returning yet again with another set of episode in the unique series. Today we are talking about another landmark law, and that is the Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Act 2007. In the next half an hour, we will examine the intent behind the Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Act 2007, its legislative journey and major provisions, the effect of the said act on the society at large, some defining judicial verdicts on the said act, and the key changes proposed in the said act through the Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Bill 2019.
Traditional and customary values of the Indian society emphasized on providing care for the parents and elderly people. But with the decline of the joint family system, a huge number of elderlies started to suffer due to lack of care by their own families, especially widowed women who were compelled to spend their old age in loneliness, thereby being exposed to emotional neglect coupled with lack of physical and financial support. It is a sad reality that aging has become a major social challenge. Henceforth, responding to the societal needs in that regard and to give more attention to the care and protection for the older persons, the Indian Parliament passed a legislation titled the Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizen Act 2007.
To speak about this landmark, humane and considerate legislation, we have with us two very prominent guests in the studio. We have with us Justice Gita Mittal, who's the first ever woman Chief Justice of the Jammu and Kashmir High Court. She has also served as the Acting Chief Justice of the Delhi High Court and Judge of the Delhi High Court for several years. Currently, she is the Chairperson of the Broadcasting Content Complaints Council. She has also been awarded with several prestigious awards for extraordinary contribution to the society at large. Welcome, Justice Mittal, to the studios. We also have with us CEO of HelpAge India, Rohit Prasad. Rohit has an exceptional career and experience of more than 2 decades in both corporate and social sector, with emphasis on healthcare and public health. Welcome to the studios, Rohit.
Thank you. Thank you. My pleasure to be here with Justice Mittal.
Thank you. Justice Mittal, I would like to start a discussion from your end. How would you consider and describe this particular law as a landmark law in the journey of our legislation?
I think it was a very, very welcome step, and it we truly subscribed and actualized the promise given by the Constituent Assembly,
Right.
the constituent makers to the people of India, of ensuring social justice
Right.
to the a very marginalized group, which is the elderly.
Right.
The Act recognizes also a huge social change, a change in social milieu, where children move away out of homes for economic reasons, for livelihood, and abandoning or leaving behind parents who need assistance, who feel neglected or are otherwise able to maintain or support them. So 2007, I think, was a huge milestone in the history of Indian legislation, when the legislature actually crafted this piece of very important legislation and actualized the promise of the Constitution of ensuring equality and social justice to everybody. You know, it recognizes that parents and senior citizens actually need to be assisted, especially when they are abandoned or are in need of assistance and they are unable to maintain and support itself. It also understands and reinforces the need for a special law, provides a special procedure, a summary procedure for ensuring the assistance, which has been crafted as maintenance,
Exactly.
you know, carved out as maintenance, but includes everything within its ambit: food, shelter, healthcare, you know, described as medical needs in the 2007 Act.
Right.
And it shortens the procedure, takes it out of the purview of the normal court system. We earlier had the first recognition of the need to provide for parents was realized by the legislature in 1973, when they incorporated the provision of maintenance for parents under Section 125.
Right.
But the elderly were still left out.
Left out,
People
yes.
who did not have children, childless people. So this was the category which was covered by the 2007 enacted enactment. A special tribunal has been constituted, an administrative officer of the rank of SDM or DM. States have been given the capacity to notify such tribunals, have been called upon to create tribunals in every district, a very narrow procedure. Lawyers are not permitted. To shorten the procedure, the legislation carves out the assistance for the applicant in the nature of providing a maintenance officer who is a social worker. It also has, the Act has comported to the needs of the law, principles of natural justice.
Right.
Notice is postulated to the respondent, which is the children of the person, children of the person against whom maintenance is sought.
Right.
So far as the childless person is concerned, childless elderly is concerned, you can file the claim against anybody who will inherit from you your property.
Right.
You know, so these are very important.
they're
It's a
they're path-breaking.
far-sightedness. It was a path-breaking
Absolutely.
legislation.
Absolutely.
It also provided a cap on the extent of maintenance,
Right.
which is a difficult area, and
Yeah,
we'll talk about
we will
it.
talk about that.
Yes,
Yeah, because
yes.
we will talk about the
Yes,
amendment
yes.
bill as well,
Yes.
and cover that point
Yes,
there
yes.
also. Rohit, moving on to you, you being a person from the social sector and public health sector, how would you like to commend and compliment this particular statute? Let's hear it from you as well, from the perspective of, let's say, private sector.
Absolutely. Okay, from the, so why this act, and if you look at it from the perspective of the society, caring for elders has always been a core part of the Indian values and culture. And as it was mentioned, the society has changed.
Right.
The joint family system has broken down, the values have shifted, and we see more cases of elder abuse that are coming up. Right. So in some sense, after 60 years of independence, the country had that realization that the moral duty frame is not enough, and a legal perspective has to come in. So the legislation, in my view, in 2007 was acknowledging the reality of times. It was a sad reality, but it was still a landmark in several ways.
Yes.
First, I think from the perspective of elders and the society, it was a pioneering, enabling legislation that recognized the rights of the senior citizens for their life of dignity.
Absolutely.
And it provided a recourse for them to take legal action if they were unable to do so.
Absolutely.
And the second very important point is that, who takes care of elders? And that's the approach that the law took, that it put onus on the family, the children and the relatives, but it also put onus on the government to take care of the indigent, the poor, and put social measures behind it. And the third point on the process itself, Justice Mittal has already outlined, it was simplified, again keeping in mind the elderly, so subdivision level tribunals for easy access, reach, simple process. So in many ways, I think it was a landmark legislation and greatly going to benefit these societies.
And Rohit, you rightly said that, sadly, but what to do? It was imperative to bring about this law where, we had to ensure that, parents and senior citizens, elderlies as a whole are, taken care of with empathy and sensitivity. Justice Mittal, doing a transition into a more substantive discussion now, I was a little bothered by the fact that there already is a statute called Criminal Procedure Code 1973, where Chapter 9, through sections 125 to 128, deals with maintenance of parents and wife and children as well. But there was already a set of provisions which existed with regard to maintenance of parents. And then now we have 2007 Act. Don't you think it sort of creates some kind of overlap, confusion for the people who have to seek remedy with regard to their maintenance and welfare?
Hemant, I already pointed out the huge vacuum. There are a lot of people who don't have children, who are not parents.
Yes.
So the 125 Act has really left them out of their ambit.
Absolutely.
So what about or parents or couples who don't have children? So where do they go?
Where do they
go? So if they are neglected or abandoned or in need of assistance or facilitation, there is no other mechanism. The state has not created any mechanism.
Right.
So where do they go? So this legislation filled that vacuum. Secondly, you and I have gone to the magistrate's court. Section 125 actually gives the remedy to the magistrate. Can any person go to the court without the assistance of a lawyer? When you think of going to a lawyer, what is the financial implications of that?
Absolutely.
And then the proverbial court delays. Not because the judge doesn't want to try fast, not because 125 itself doesn't say provide a time limit, but because it may just not be possible. A recalcitrant or an unscrupulous respondent child will be able to avoid service of the summons from the court. So the process itself, intended very well, was really protracted.
Well, the Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Bill 2007 was passed by the Lok Sabha on 5th December 2007 and Rajya Sabha on 6th December 2007. And it received President's assent on 29th December 2007. Let us glance through the legislative journey of the said bill by witnessing some of the significant debates in that respect in both the houses of the parliament.
With the fading away of the joint family system, they find themselves neglected, marginalized, abandoned. This is the sad reality. And this is the reason why we have brought this bill.
The provisions should be made in the bill so that the pre-medical facilities are available to the senior citizens who do not have any other person to look after them. Some old age homes should be set up by the government where the inmates can stay giving payment. Their fooding and security medical facilities should be taken care of.
संयुक्त परिवार की परिकल्पना छोड़िए, वो माँ जो अपने बेटे को 9 महीने तक कोख में पालती है बहुत तपस्या के बाद और जन्म देती है, न जाने कितने दिक्कतों के बाद उसको बड़ा करती है, वो बेटा क्या कर रहा है? माँ की तरफ देखने का भी काम नहीं कर रहा है.
Number of people deserving to be maintained have considerably increased, and our constitutional obligation is now taken up for obligation. the bill is a laudable step in the right direction.
Well, the discussion is getting to stimulate, and time has also come to slip into a very short break. After the break, we will seek more insight from our panel of notable experts regarding this landmark law of parents and elderly's welfare. Please do stay around, as we'll be back soon. Welcome back after the break. You're watching our exclusive show on 75 years of legislative journey. We are continuing our discussion on important and historic law, the Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Act, 2007. Statistics of 2011 census demonstrate that 8.6% of the Indian population comprises of citizens who are over the age of 60 years, which percentage is estimated to increase to 21% by 2050. And another public source reveals that currently India has 16 crore senior citizens, which number will double up to 32 crore, that is 320 million people in 2050. It is going to be huge. The Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Act 2007 was enacted for the welfare and maintenance of senior citizens, obligating children to provide maintenance for their parents, and the government to deliver old age homes and guarantee medical care for the senior citizens. Rohit, let me come to you in this part of the discussion, because your organization is engaged in running old age homes, as I understand. What are those specific provisions in this act which deal with setting up of old age homes and providing medical care?
So the act, the amendment, there's substantial changes in the previous act, the earlier act.
Yes,
both in relation to the homes and the medical support. So Section 3, which talked about the old age homes earlier, now has been renamed to call Senior Citizen Care Home. And it's not just symbolic, it's a very important shift, because you are looking at the senior citizen care perspective, and that change has come in.
Yeah. But not the dwelling
it's
part
just
only.
not about old age,
Yes.
it's about caring for senior citizens. But the other important part is the addition of what's called the multi-service daycare centers. This was not there earlier, this has been added. And the premise here is that the elderly during the day also need support. They need to go out, they need to have something on education, entertainment, some healthcare activities. So that provision has come in. Right. On the medical side, again the term has changed from medical to healthcare. And the idea was that to look at it more comprehensively.
Right.
So besides the geriatric care facilities, etc., which is provided under the Act, the beds, earlier only the government hospitals were supposed to allocate beds. Now all hospitals, be it private or government, need to or should try to allocate beds. But the other important element is the introduction of home care services. And this is very much in line with the idea that aging at home. So the Act prompted or boosted the government action on these matters.
Right.
Of course, all of it needs to be implemented.
Absolutely.
And there is an economic capacity issue. But besides that, I think we are directionally on the right path.
Well, to amend the Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Act 2007, the government brought about an amendment bill in 2019. The said bill is likely to be considered and perhaps passed soon. Let us continue our discussion with a panel of experts to understand more explicitly about the pending amendments. Let's hear from you. What are the key highlights of 2019?
Most important interventions and introductions in this law, proposed law, is the inclusion of in-laws. father-in-law and mother-in-law in the definition of parent in section 2(1)(d).
Outstanding.
Very
That's
critical.
revolutionary.
You know, the husband may be unemployed, husband may be unemployed, wife may be a CEO of a multinational corporation. You're bound to maintain your in-laws who are in need.
So
Widening
this
of
is breaking the shackles
oh,
of the
yes.
past.
You know, it's a recognition of the Indian ethos actually.
Absolutely,
you know.
absolutely.
Widening of the definition of maintenance, you know, it is widened. There is an inclusion of the multi-daycare center, which for senior citizens, which Rohit has already pointed out. And in the liability clause, section 2G, you know, there was no liability if the child was a minor. But here they have said minor through his guardian. You know, so
minor is now covered through the guardian.
Then registration of a senior citizens care home. Right. Pardon me for making another request. If the legislature would take a look and providing for regulation of these senior citizens homes and the elderly home for the elderly and the multidisciplinary daycare centers, you must provide for inspections. You must provide for penalties for violations. You know, they could be harassed. We have in Delhi had instances of orphanages, you know, and the mismanagement of orphanages.
Abuse,
So we must remember that the elderly are also very vulnerable. Then there is a new childless senior citizen, you know, they have provided a new procedure for that and provided for making applications by registered post, online applications, or by any other means. Then there is a prescription of a nodal officer in every police station, you know, who will be of the rank of not below the ASI. And at the district level, they have proposed
to attend to the complaints of elderly.
Special police unit, which will coordinate between the police and the senior citizens, headed by an officer not below the rank of a DSP, and a social worker and 2 social workers and the nodal officers would be coordinated. And of course, section 23A, another very critical step, ensuring equality, removing discrimination against the elderly. Firstly, the act becomes effective when state governments decide to implement it. We need to see how we can motivate and encourage state governments. Then regulation I've already pointed out. Thirdly, you know, the state has completely abdicated responsibility to children or people who are going to inherit. Who will look after people who have nothing to give? No property which anybody will inherit.
Absolutely.
So the state needs to take on responsibility in ensuring that every elderly, with or without children, with or without property which somebody is going to inherit, is also taken care of.
Absolutely. So. Rohit, in few words, if you could let the viewers know that if you think that this bill, you know, if passed by the Parliament, would actually strengthen the objectives of Maintenance and Welfare Act 2007.
One is the aspect on implementation. I think implementation is very much a critical part of any act. And what we have seen is that, for example, take the aspect of awareness. Surveys show that less than 20% people are aware of the Maintenance Act. In fact, the LASI, which is a longitudinal study on aging in India, put the number at 12%. So there's a lot of collective action needed to get the word out about this act to people. The second is on the aspect of implementing agencies and sensitization. But, you know, the compassion in the system is very important because this is a social legislation. So right from the officials to everybody in the system, if there's a compassion, then it may get implemented. The third point, I just want to bring it out because the elder abuse is the starting point, and most senior citizens resort to legal action if all else fails. You know, it's almost like the last resort option.
Yeah, when the endurance runs out.
Absolutely. But the abuse, for the first time in the amendment has the elder abuse introduced. So if not only abandonment is going to cause penal action, which is 3 to 6 months of prison plus 10,000 fine, but even elder abuse, and broadly defined in terms of physical, verbal, mental, economic, is going to be now under a statutory penal provision. We directionally, we are very positive about it.
So basically 2 wheels are very important. One is orientation and the other one is implementation.
Right.
Well, it's time to take the viewer's question. This time the question has come from Raghav from Jaipur. Let's listen.
My uncle and aunt gifted and transferred their own property to their son. The gift deed did not have the clause for their maintenance, and now they are literally being abandoned. Can they still get the gift deed cancelled and revoked under this act?
Justice Mittal, would you like to take this question?
You
had touched upon it
I have
earlier.
touched upon it.
But he's saying that if the clause is missing as to maintenance, in where the transfer has taken place.
The Act does not explicitly say that the condition must be as in writing in part of the transfer deed.
Right.
Secondly, Raghav also does not give the date of the transfer. So you cannot contextualize as to whether it is
assuming
pre
it is,
or post
let's say
2007.
Assuming if it is
2007,
post 2007.
Yes, he must go to court. He also, even if you cannot get the gift deed revoked, but he can get the order of maintenance under the other provisions.
Absolutely.
So, even if not under where he has a very good summary procedure, and if the bill goes through, his aunt and uncle will have a very good case for unlimited maintenance. Ultimately, property is not what they need.
Absolutely.
They are looking for support and maintenance.
Right.
So, they would be more interested. Even the rendering the deed void does not serve the purpose of ensuring care, maintenance, health, shelter to the elderly. So the legislature should have been a little more discerning and look for a way of ensuring the maintenance to the elderly, because they will first go to court for having the lease deed or the gift deed or the transfer deed declared void, and then file separate proceedings for maintenance, etc.
Right. So predominant advice is that he should approach for the maintenance and then simultaneously even seek revocation. Very good advice. Well, with this we have reached the finale of today's episode. The discussion we had with our panel of distinguished and illustrious guests was immensely profound and significant. Thank you so much for being part of this discussion, and your views were enlightening and very informative, let me tell you.
Thank you.
Well, the worthy legislation which we have discussed today was more than essential to rationalize the well-being of all in the society. The Parliament, in its wisdom, considering the acceptance of the age-old moral values, seeks to promote the common good through this act. That's all we have in this edition of the program. You can send your feedback at sansad@sansad.nic.in. You can also connect with us on various other social media platforms. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, good luck, stay safe, and namaskar.